Hey, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Prophy. I am your host, Jasmine Haley, the founder of Beyond the Prophy, and today's guest is a new community member, y'all, Heather McGuire. This is her first time here on the podcast, and I cannot wait to delve into her journey. She's been in dental for over 10 years. She's held various roles, such as being a dental assistant, a hygienist, sales, and positions in DSOs, as well as hygiene leadership. Here's some other cool factors about her. She is a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, mental and emotional release, and hypnosis. And we're so excited to hear about her journey and share some of the gems that she has learned along her way. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you here. And I'm glad that you answered the call to share your story. So I love how you've had various different roles in your career. So let us know, like, currently what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I've actually been in dentistry for 20 years. I practiced chairside
Okay.
hygiene for 10. I was like, I could go with 10. Like I look a little younger. I just celebrated a birthday yesterday. So having a little midlife, haven't figured out if it's a crisis or a breakthrough. Um,
I'm in that
so
right now. Okay.
So the mindset on this one. So I'm having a midlife thing. So
Yeah.
having to admit that I've been in dentistry for 20 years is I'm kind of swallowing hard there. But yeah, so I am currently the director of hygiene development for Save a Dental Team. We're an emerging DSO based out of Michigan, and we have 7 locations in Michigan and Ohio right now.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And please excuse that typo. But me and you are
It's
both. We're
okay.
riding hard for dentistry for 20 years. For 20 years. Oh my goodness.
I know, wild. Where does it all go?
I know. So for you, you've had so many different roles. I would love to know, like, what was the motivating factor for you to really be okay with spreading your wings and trying out different things in your own career?
I've always had that desire to learn and know more. And when I was an assistant, I really wanted to experience what the hygienists were doing.
Mhm.
I valued and respected the position that they had with their patients. I felt like it was more intimate and the relationship that the hygienist and the doctor had together. So I've always been very aware and observant of my surroundings, and listening to that small voice inside of you. I think you talked about it on a podcast that you had done recently, but listening to that voice inside you when you want to grow and not hushing it, not putting
Mm,
those limiting beliefs on ourselves of, I can't do that, I won't do that, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I only have my associate's degree, I have to go back to school. Like, those are all fear-based thoughts that we tell ourselves to keep us small,
mhm.
right? And sometimes we get in our own way the most. And when I listen to that small voice inside of me that says, go see what's over there, I want to know why I'm drawn to that. And I just keep pushing through and I learn what I can. Every role that I've been in has been a learning opportunity to take me to the next level. And I remember when I was a hygienist, so this was probably in 2012. It was the first time I worked in a DSO, and I had a director of hygiene. And man, did she inspire me. And she's still a
Mhm.
very dear friend of mine. Marlene Casey she's with 42 North, I think now. But at the time, she was my very first relationship in a role like this. And it was the very first time I had my eyes open to how big this little industry can be.
Mhm.
And she was just took me under her wing, and she would teach me the newest technologies. She would teach me how to be more efficient in my time. She would teach me little tips to have for patient communication. And I would love when she came in, and I learned so much from her. And I remember telling myself then that I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be able to be fulfilled and give back in my role. And it had always been a goal of mine to be a hygiene director. And
Mm.
I actually went when she transitioned out of that role and went somewhere else. I actually interviewed for her position, and I had a lot of those doubts. I had a lot of that. I sat at that board table and I went, I'm too new in my career. I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough. I'm not her.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get that position because of those doubts. But I used that
Mm.
opportunity to learn and grow what else I needed to do to continue to advance my career. So, listening to what your desires are and then finding out your resources that you need to take that next step and that next action.
I love that. There was something that you shared, Heather, that I definitely want to touch on for the listeners because I was like, "Oh, this is good. This is that spark, that jolt that some of us are waiting for." And you mentioned that some people get stuck in thinking that they are going to be handed a golden ticket of some sort. And it is the reality of it is that you have to put in action and to do work. What did that look like for you?
So, I look at things through 3 different filters: mindset, skill set, and action. And all of those things have to be in line for change to happen. So I can have the desire. I can have that desire to grow out of the operatory. I could have the desire, I'm a director right now. I have the desire to be a vice president of an organization one day. So I have the mindset of growth. So when you want to change, for me, it's looking at, what do I believe I'm capable of this? Where is my mindset around it? Do I think I can't do it, or I won't do it, or am I waiting for that golden ticket? But if my mindset is clear and I know my, like putting a GPS coordinate in on your phone, if I know where I want to go, I might not know how I'm going to get there because there's going to be detours and construction and, an accident or two along the way. But if I have a clear pinpoint of where I want to go, then the way will appear. So is my mindset clear to where I want my next goal to be? If my answer is yes to that, then I can move into, what is my skill set? What skills do I need to obtain to get to that level? And what skills do I already have? What can I maximize? What resources do I have available to me? Maybe it's a course I need to take. Maybe it's a coach I need to hire. I wanted to get to number one in my sales career when I was on the vendor relationship side. I hired a sales coach because I knew what I wanted, but I didn't have the skills to get from where I was to where I wanted to be. So I had to hire a
You better
coach.
preach.
I hired a coach. And
Uh,
guess what? I ended the year number 1 because I
yes.
hired a coach and I had accountability. And what he gave me was an action plan because my
Mm,
mindset was there, my skill set he was helping me develop, and I had an accountability and an action plan so that I couldn't just sit there and say, well, it's just not coming to me. It's just not
mm,
coming to me. I had to have a specific outlined goal of, okay, if I wanted to be number 1, this is the big goal. And I got to chunk it down. What do I need per month? What do I need per week? What do I need per day? And now I have a daily action plan to improve my skills, to get to my mindset, to get to my GPS coordinates.
ooh, so good. And what you shared is a great example of entrepreneurship, of an entrepreneurial thinking, because what most people don't realize, leaders, business owners, we reverse engineer our goals. We say, this is our goal. What do I need to do quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily to be able to
Yes,
reach that annual goal,
that's
right?
right.
And we don't go about our day to day without any sort of intentionality. We are constantly thinking about, how does this specific step or action lead me to where I want to be? And so I
Hmm.
love that you shared that because that's exactly what most people who are deemed successful, and I'm using the bunny ear quotes, are deemed successful in their industry, every single one of them are doing that. Oh, that was
Yes,
good. That was
yes.
so
And
good.
then,
That was so good.
thanks. Um, and I hear so many hygienists that say, and I'm in so many of the Facebook groups that we're all in, and everybody says there's no opportunities out there. So that's a mindset issue because there are now more than ever more opportunities to grow and expand inside of dental and out. So
Mm,
that's a mindset issue. Um,
mhm,
Skill set, is, what are you doing in your role that you're currently in? Track what's trackable. A lot of times when we talk, like as a hygiene leadership role, and I come in and I will mentor and talk to some of the hygiene teams, and I'll say track what's trackable. A lot of times we get this: I don't want to talk about money. I don't want to sell. I don't want to
Mhm.
talk about money. I'm here for
Yes.
patient care. I'm not going to talk about that. Don't come in here and talk to me about money. But if you know the business acumen, if you know the business end of your clinical career, that is what's trackable. That's what's gonna set your resume
Yes.
apart. And it's not about here's
Yep.
for all the listeners, here's the key here. Here's my insider trader secret. It's not about the numbers that are on there. It's about the fact that you track them and you have that higher level thinking to say, here is my contribution and my impact on this organization. And I want to be part of the whole. So it doesn't matter if your numbers are small, it's the fact that they're on there and that you've taken an
Yes. And
action
you can
plan.
speak their language. You can speak the
Mhm.
leadership's language.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's
that's
good.
exactly right. That's exactly right.
Mhm. So I appreciate you sharing that because I have found, for the last 5 years, I've actually built my business outside of dentistry, and I've been in a lot of different rooms compared to when I was only in dental rooms, and I've been having some deep conversations with women business owners, other leaders, and I'm talking about like rock star business owners. I had never met a woman leader that had hundreds of employees. I'm like, "What?" And they build it from scratch, okay?
Wow.
So it's remarkable to hear that, but it's also very interesting how many of us in dentistry, we shy away from understanding that everything on the planet is centered around production of revenue. There's nothing we can't give what we're doing out to the community without some funds coming in.
Yeah.
There's everything is revolved around that. We're in a capitalistic society, so it's like, why can't we talk about those things? And I love the fact that that you mentioned that. I'm curious to know, because before we came on, y'all, Heather showed me all her best angles. She also showed me what she was discussing prior to having this interview today, and she talked a little bit about I can't. So I would love for you to kind of dive into some of the adjustments we need to make as professionals with using words like that.
Yeah, so outside of dentistry, I study human development and the unconscious and conscious mind. And
Mm,
I've spent the last 4 years being certified in neuro-linguistics programming, which is how our neurology, how our brain waves
mhm,
and our language go together to form our programs or our patterns.
mhm,
So the unconscious mind is it's our driver. The unconscious mind is responsible. It's our goal getter. So we can set a goal in our conscious mind. And
mhm,
our unconscious mind is the goal getter. Our conscious mind is responsible for reason and logic and our five senses. Our unconscious mind is what drives all of our behavior. It runs our systems. It breathes. Our heartbeats. All of these things are happening in our unconscious mind. So when our conscious mind wants one thing and our unconscious mind does not have that same belief, that's where we're not in alignment and that's where we struggle to reach our goals.
mm,
So, a very big indicator of when our unconscious and conscious mind are off and they're not congruent is when we catch ourselves saying, I can't do that, or I won't do that, or anything that ends in the int. And
mm,
there's another part of our brain, the reticular activating system, and that gets turned on because its job is to prove us right. It's our
mm,
filter. All of our
mhm,
experiences are going to filter through this. So if I buy a bright yellow brand new sports car because I think that it's unique and this is the best car in the world, I now have it. My reticular activating system says I have this car, it's the best car in the world. Guess what I'm going to start seeing? Bright
all of
yellow
that.
sports
Yep.
cars
Yep.
all over the place. And you're like, I never saw this car before. Now I have it and everybody else has it. It's because that part of our brain has turned on and our conscious mind and unconscious mind have been aligned. Our reticulating activating system is flared up and its job is to prove us right. Yes, this is the best car on the planet. Let me show you all of them.
Mm.
Right?
Mhm.
So now I'm going to get what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
Our unconscious mind also cannot process can'ts, won'ts, and don'ts. So, Jasmine, don't think of a pink elephant. How do you not think of a pink elephant? You
Right.
have to
I
think
did.
of it to not think of it. Your unconscious mind cannot process can'ts. I just
Mhm.
told you, don't think of a pink elephant. You have to think of it to not think of it. There was a study, it's really interesting. I'm not going to go really super deep into it, but there was a study about the yellow slip and fall signs that you see when the floors are wet.
Yeah.
And it says, what did it used to say on there? Don't fall. And it has a picture of the guy going like this
Right.
falling.
Yep.
The only way you can think of not falling is to think of falling and then think of not falling. So, how many
Mhm.
people fell in front of this sign? It's actually a study. Really weird that somebody gets paid to do this study, but neither here nor there. So, how many people actually fell right in front of this sign? When you change the words to watch your step, now you're telling your mind what to do versus telling it what not to do. And the decrease in the number of people who slipped because it was a clear directive for your mind to say, yes, I can do that. And it's my job to prove you right. So when you're watching your
Mm.
step, you're going to watch your step and you're going to move a little bit more gracefully and you're not going to fall. So, how
Mm.
does this relate back to our personal growth and development? What are you telling yourself I can't do? So, when you're sitting there and you're thinking, I can't do this, I can't do this, get resourceful. Okay, if I can't do this, what can I do? And it's great as a leadership role. I'll ask that all the time when people come to me and say, I can't, or I won't do that, or I don't want to. Okay, I totally understand. What will you do? What
Mm.
can you do? Right? And now you're flipping on a different part of your brain because your unconscious mind is responsible for your feelings and your emotions and your patterns. So when you get those into alignment, that's like finally putting that GPS coordinate in that I know where I'm going to go. And if you have those sticky thoughts, those limiting beliefs, the self sabotaging behaviors, the playing small in a sandbox, get a coach, get a mentor.
Mhm.
There's so many amazing people in this world who want to give back because they've been helped.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I'm playing small and I'm stuck in those thoughts of I can't and I don't know what I can do and I don't know what I'm willing to do because it's a big scary change,
Yeah.
find somebody who has went before you, model the excellence, model their success, and then you can have those same results. So when you find
Mm.
yourself saying I can't and I won't, what will I do?
That's so powerful. An incredible example as well. I was visually there with you with the signs, and it made me think too about how much our external environment can impact us for the long term as far as reaching our potential. It made me think about the words that we tell ourselves, what we're feeling into our mind, what we're maybe looking at on social media, the forums,
Mhm.
everybody's going in about how life is terrible, and you're taking that in, you're feeding that in. And it just brought me back to when I first started Beyond the Prophy, when I mustered up the courage to get my first gig, my speaking gig in 2015, and then started Beyond the Prophy in 2016. I remember that I didn't fully have full belief in myself, but what I did was I was constantly reading and listening to things to actually affirm me until I started using that same language.
Yes.
And I'm it's just a wonderful example and reminder for anyone that's listening to this. Dental career motivation through Beyond the Prophy and so many other things, such as listening to stories and professional careers of people like Heather. How important it is for you to constantly surround yourself with that when you're taking bold action and courageous steps towards your highest potential, whatever that may be.
Yes. You sum that up perfectly. I'm a firm believer that you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang around with the most, and that's not an original quote. That's come from a lot of different books and a lot of different readings,
Mhm,
and so you're
mhm,
the sum of the 5 people, and I never wanna be the smartest person in a room.
mhm.
I want somebody I want 2 people ahead of me and 2 people behind me, because I want to be able to model successful behavior. And
Mhm.
I want the people who are going to raise my thermostat. I want the people who are
Yeah.
going to make me just a little bit uncomfortable so that I've
Yeah.
got to up my game.
Ooh.
Okay. And then I want the people who are going to model what I've done successfully. So I get to reach my hand back and say, let me mentor you. And the
Mhm.
only way I get to keep what I have is by giving it away. I'm in sobriety. I am 7.5 years sober. So I sponsor women. I mentor, new grads. I have a couple in this office right now. And so I want to give back because that keeps
Yeah.
me in it and
Yeah.
that fulfills me. And my core value is positive impact. So that
Mm.
fulfills that. And then I get to say, where else do I want to go? And I get to model and learn from the people who have been out in the field longer than I have. I've followed you for years. I get to follow
Oh,
that.
wow.
You aren't a new name to me, but I'm a new name to you. And it's because I
Mhm.
have for a long time I quietly watched other people and wonder, how do you become a speaker? How do you do these things? And
Mhm.
I've put myself in the right groups until I was like ready to raise my hand and say, okay, it's my turn now. What do I get to do?
Yeah.
What do I
Yeah.
get to do to be like you?
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I do want to switch gears because I'm not sure if you're aware, but when I was speaking actively, specifically in dentistry, I spoke a lot about addiction and substance use disorder. And what I found throughout my time when I would go out and speak about this, because of my experience in public health with marginalized populations, I created a space for other professionals to say, hey, it's not just our patients, it's what I'm personally
Mm.
dealing with as well. And I've had some incredible people come on to the show. Episode, I believe it's 100. Lisa Zimmer, I think that's her last name. She was someone that dealt with it. I would love for you to kind of share a little bit about a movement that means a lot to you as far as being sober, and something that you wish was shared with you throughout your journey to make sure that you continue on the path where you are today.
Yeah, and I've been speaking a lot about this recently, and I had decided years ago to recover out loud.
Mm,
I struggled as a single mom going through hygiene school and having 3 young boys at home, and alcoholism and substance abuse got the best of me for a long time, and I had to balance all of these different roles. And I
mm,
had to try to still be a mom, and I had all these different masks that I felt like I wore. And, I was terrified for anybody to find out because I was afraid to get sober. I was afraid because I had a dental license. I was a licensed healthcare professional. I was afraid to ask the medical professionals for help. I was terrified to go to rehab. I It just seemed to be too much, and the only thing I had at some points in my life was my hygiene career, and if I lost that, then everything else that I was holding myself together with Scotch tape, and not
yeah,
even the good Scotch tape, like the dollar store Scotch tape that doesn't
right.
really hold anything. I was holding
Yes.
my life together for that with a long time of my life. It was the
Mm,
dollar store Scotch tape era.
wow.
Um, and until it got to be too much. And I had coincidentally had just started working in an office with a dentist who was in recovery, and I was floored. And he was very open about it. And I was just shocked. And I was like, that same thing, modeling successful behavior. He had 6 years sober at that time. And I thought, And he was open about it, and he still had a license, and it was okay. So I got to the point where I was spiritually, emotionally, and mentally broken enough that I reached out and asked for help. And I did not go to rehab. I was still scared of that, but I did find my way into a recovery program. And then I started putting my life back together, and I wanted to do more. That nudge came of let's do something more than clinical hygiene. And I got the opportunity to be in the vendor sales side. And now I was sober and I was surrounded by alcohol again. And I was
Mm.
scared. I was scared. I was 2 years sober when I left clinical hygiene. And I was in with all the flashing lights and the national sales meetings and the cocktail hours and, you know, all of the lights and the glitz.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to be a professional woman and be in sobriety. I didn't know because that small voice in my head was telling me because your glass had something in it different than my glass, and I'm drinking juice boxes in the corner or club soda and lime, and you're drinking something, an adult beverage, that somehow you're better than me. So I was starting to play small again in my own mind, or I was feeling super uncomfortable. I didn't know how to network without that courage in my cup. I didn't know how to travel through an airport without sitting at a bar beforehand because my mind glamorizes a glass of wine while you're sitting there in high heels, you
Mm.
know?
Mhm.
I didn't know how to life. I was sober. I got that part down, but I didn't know how to be a professional woman in it. So
Mhm.
earlier this year, I came across Laura Nelson and Margie Scheller, and they're the founders of Sober Life Rocks. And this movement is kind of twofold. One is to bring awareness around sobriety and addiction and mental health and alcoholism in the dental space, because unfortunately when we do go to conferences, a lot of the happy hours and networking are around drinking.
Yep.
So how do we change that narrative? How do we have a mocktail menu? How do we make it more inclusive? We've worked really hard in other arenas to be all inclusive for gender, for race, sexuality, and there's another population that's been pushed in a corner. And a lot of people are afraid to speak out and say, I'm sober and I'm uncomfortable because I don't want to have to go to this, you know, bubbly and brews networking event. I just want to go meet good people. I don't want it to be centered around alcohol or in these
Mm.
really loud nightclubs, stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
anyway, so Sober Life Rocks was founded and started to really take space this year in the conference centers of how do we do better and how do we become more inclusive. And now there's another segment that's kind of branching out because there's more women just like me who are saying, how do I be professional? Now, like I said, I'm 7.5 years sober now, but there's still these weird things that happen in life sometimes. So it's a community of people that are coming together to do monthly mastermind meetings, to do coffee hours, to meet up at conferences before the day starts so you can have that good mindset. And to have this network of other professional people who are navigating this landscape of life with club soda in their cup and how to get
Mm.
through that limiting beliefs of I don't know how to do this. Again, it's the network of people to get through the can'ts, won'ts, and don'ts. I don't know how to get through some of these things sober and alone. When you're in a conference or you're at a seminar and you're alone and you go back to your hotel room, it can be a little nutty in your head. So now if I have a network of like-minded people, my can'ts or I don't know how to do this alone turns into I did that. And that's
Yeah.
what Sober Life Rocks is really, what that movement and what that organization is really about. So check it out. They've got a website, they've got social media platforms. Anybody can reach out to me and ask me anything. And the plea I put for every time I'm on a podcast is if you are struggling um, with any substance abuse, you're not alone. And I will always, always take a phone call to help guide you to where you need to be to get to the level of life that you deserve to be.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like a shift happened for me because I've been on dental conference floors, vendor, exhibit halls where they're handing out mimosas and all alcohol. And I've actually made a conscious decision to lessen the amount of alcohol that I drink only because I am now about to be 40 years old in a few months. And it doesn't settle well for me. I don't sleep well. I don't sleep well. It doesn't My body is just not responding to it. But I realize that now when I'm in places asking for mocktails, they're looking at me like, "Well, we don't have anything for you."
Mhm.
And because I'm not dealing with substance use disorder, there is no shame around that for me. or vulnerability in asking for that, right? And so I love the fact that you just really highlight stuff that goes through the mind of those who may be challenged with that, and how we
Mhm.
can create more of a welcoming, supportive environment for everyone. And I think it's brave to start a movement like that. But it's also necessary. It's a necessary conversation, because the more people that are behind scenes not being able to be out in the open, more harm is done. And we need community for us
Yes.
to all grow.
Yes, that's right.
That. So I um I know that I want to be respectful of your time, and I also want to make sure that everyone knows where to find you. Before we do that though, if you can just go back to the start of your journey, um or it could be midway, what piece of advice would you give yourself? What's one piece of advice that really stands true for you?
So I have a spiritual mentor.
Mhm.
And her, when you asked me that, that's the only thing that came to my mind is one of the things she tells me on repeat. So it must be something that I have to say. Is she tells me all the time, Heather, get out of the sandbox. Stop playing small.
Mhm.
And there's probably a million things I would have told myself along the way, but I'm really grateful of the path that my life took me on, because now I am in the best chapter of my life. And I wouldn't be who I am without those struggles.
Mhm.
And so I'm grateful. But when you asked me that, that was the first thing that came to my mind. So that must be what needs to be said is just stop playing small. Get out of the sandbox, dream big, and go for it. Just go for
Yes.
it, because life, I mean, life is what you're going to make it. So what are you going to plug into your brain? Because its job is to prove you right. So put the
Mhm.
good stuff in, get out of the sandbox, and just play a big game.
I love it. I love it so much. All right. So if listeners are interested in contacting you, how do they find you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Heather McGuire. I think on Facebook, I'm Heather McGuire RDH. Everywhere else, I'm just Heather McGuire. My website is www.mcg. Let me say it again, www.mcgcoaching.com. And unfortunately, because I'm not that cool yet, you do have to type in the www, because Google doesn't know that I'm an actual person. So if you just type in MCG coaching, you will not find me. So do the www first. Unless a lot of people hurry up and go to my website, then maybe Google will know that I exist.
Let's
But for
support her
right
and go to
now,
that website, y'all.
for right now, you gotta type in the whole thing. Um,
That's
and
funny.
yes, I do coaching, one-on-one coaching.
Mhm.
And for any of the listeners, I say 30 minutes, it tends to be 60-minute kind of check-in discovery call to see if I can help you with your mindset, skill set, or action. So my Calendly link is on my website. Just put in the comments that you were from Beyond the Prophy, and I will gladly spend an hour of my time with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Heather. You are amazing. I love learning more about you, and I'm so grateful that you decided to come on the show and share your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.